Hi, it's Laura here, and I'm looking at a video tutorial on declarer's strategy and whether or not to do this thing we call drawing trumps. So let's get into it and have a look, shall we? Okay, so what we're going to do is pretend that we're sitting here as the south hand, and we're actually going to pretend we're the declarer in the contract of a grand slam in spades, which numerically would work out to be 7 spades. And we're pretending we're declarer, so we'd be able to see the north hand normally, and I'm showing you the east-west hands to show you what might happen if you don't do the strategy of drawing trumps. Now, the way that you draw trumps is what you're trying to do is get rid of all the opponent's trumps so that they can't actually rough in and trump your winners, because that would be something that we don't like. So if we're playing with spades as trumps, we can see that we hold 8 between north and south, or 8 together, and that means that the opponents have 5 out between them. We subtract from 13 to work that out. So what I do at the start of every hand that I play, I count how many trumps that my side has, I subtract that number from 13, that gives me how many the opponents have, and then what I can do is count down every time they play them. Now don't forget, normally you wouldn't be able to see the east-west hand, but just for this tutorial we can see them all to see what happens. So if I was in 7 spades, let's take a look at what would happen if I actually just won my tricks and just kept on playing something like hearts. Now, if I did this, everybody needs to play hearts, but what would happen when I eventually play the 3rd round is that the opponents can actually trump in. Now, this would be really, really unfortunate if it actually happened. Now, on the other hand, let's say that I use this strategy of drawing trumps. Now, the way that we do that is we actually play the trump suit for ourselves, and we can see what a difference it'll make. So here we are, we're back at the beginning of the hand before even a card's been played. Everybody's got all 13. And we'll say again that West leads a heart, and we're going to win this heart trick. Now, the strategy of drawing trumps, what happens when we do draw trumps is that we actually play out the trump cards and we remove the opponent's ability to trump. So remember, we had 8 trumps, the opponents have 5. So what we can do, if I play out the trumps, I can count down how many trumps they'll hold in their hand. They started with 5, they've just played 2 of them, so between the 2 opponents, there's now 3 remaining. If I played another round, what I can do, again, count down. They had 3, they've just played 2, there's going to be 1 trump outstanding. What I can do is play one more lot of spades, and at this stage, the opponents will now be out of trumps. That's the final trump that was outstanding. What I can do now is I can freely play my other winners in other suits, and I know that what's going on is that I'm going to be able to win them and the opponents are never going to be able to trump in. And that's because they just don't have any trumps left in their hand. So this is a strategy that is sometimes used when we're declaring a hand in a trump suit contract. It's called drawing trumps, and basically what we're doing is we're playing out the trump cards so that the opponents won't have any, and we can freely win our winners at a later stage. And here we can see I'm going to get all of the remaining tricks. My opponents can't trump in because they don't actually have any trumps left. The key part was I had to work out how many trumps they held and subtract it from 13 to figure out how many trumps that I actually needed to play. Let's have a look at another hand. For this second hand, we're going to pretend we're actually in a heart contract. So hearts are trumps. Again, I'm the declarer as south, and I'm about to plan the play of this hand. Now, last time what we did was we drew trumps, and that was our way of being able to stop the opponents from trumping in on any of our winners. I'm just going to show you this hand to illustrate why it's a little bit different. So let's say that we're in hearts and the opponent's led a spade. Now this hand's quite different because if I ended up doing this drawing trumps thing, so let's say that I did my work, I figured out the opponents have 5 trumps between them, and I actually now played out my hearts so that I knew the opponents didn't have any hearts left. What's going to happen is that I'm going to have a little bit of a problem. Now the problem that I have is that once the opponents are able to get in, they're actually going to be able to win those spade tricks. So if we can see now, my opponents can get in and they're going to be able to play spades, and they're going to get to win quite a few spade tricks because I have to follow suit to the spades, even though my dummy has none of them. In theory, my dummy should be able to ruff. But the problem is they're actually now out of spades, but they're out of trumps as well. And my opponent's just got to win all these spade tricks. If we go right back to the start of the hand, we'll see how it's different in this strategy. So we're right back at the start of the hand, and this time I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm not going to draw trumps, and I'm going to see what happens if I can actually use my dummy's trumps to trump these little spades. And we'll see how many tricks I get to make then. So I keep playing out a spade, then what I might do is I might come back across to my hand, and now I'm going to play another spade and trump that one as well. And now I come back to my ace of diamonds and play another little spade. And I can trump that final one. Now at this stage, I'll have to lose a trick to the opponents, but when I get back in, what I'm going to be able to do is draw out the trumps at that stage and have to give up a diamond trick. But the difference is that I didn't have to lose all those spades that I had to lose the first time. So what's the difference between these two hands? On one of them, I should have drawn trumps, and on the other one, it was a bad idea for me to draw trumps. And how do we know the difference? Well, the difference is usually if there's a singleton or void in the dummy. So if you're the declarer and the dummy has a singleton or void, normally what you'll want to do is you'll want to trump something first before you actually draw out the opponent's trumps, or play out the trumps to get rid of the opponents. If the dummy doesn't have a singleton or void, normally what you'll want to do is you'll normally just want to keep playing and drawing out the opponent's trumps. This will vary from hand to hand, and it's not going to work perfectly all the time, but it's a really good base strategy to start with. If the dummy's hand, so not your hand yourself, but if the dummy's hand has a singleton or a void, normally you'll want to do some trumping, but if the dummy doesn't have a singleton or a void, normally what you're going to want to do is draw out those opponent's trumps so that they can't actually rough in on any of your winners. There are different strategies that you will learn as you progress in your card play, but this is a good one to start off with. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.